So why is personal finance and financial literacy so important? In this video, we're gonna find out. There are so many resources out there that educates people on the subject of personal finance. They call it financial literacy, financial empowerment, there's all these things, but basically in essence, they're teaching you to be better at understanding what personal finance is, to be more financially literate, to help with budgeting, savings. There are so much. One of which is from the Financial Planning Foundation. And then you can just Google, there's so many universities, like Harvard's got a financial literacy program and free resources. And most universities do, but it's so sad to me that these things, they go unrecognized, they go underappreciated, they're not used, and I guess because the subject is kind of flat and not exciting, I guess. If I can sum it up, one of my mentors shared this with me early on when I started my career and I was trying to figure things out. And it's the difference between basically what makes generally a person successful in whatever that they want to accomplish, whether that's learning about personal finance or basically just want to better themselves. Like, let's say the general one is, I want to make a lot of money, I want to retire early, young, I want to retire my parents, I want to take care of my family, whatever, right? Provide a better household for my children, whatever that might be. The key to anybody's eventual success or their career success, it's not the how-to that makes them successful. Yes, they have a trade, they have certain skill sets, they are able to solve problems, they have a product, they have some business, they have a great career, they're highly educated. All of that are more in the how-to. But really, the driving force behind that, it's the why part. It's the why to. Think of it as, like for me, to share my story, I got involved in the financial services industry because I want to get educated myself. I wasn't getting enough of that at the university I was attending. And so I figure, let's get licenses, right? So that was part of my why, and it drove me to realize, okay, if I'm going at the pace of, I gotta wait 2 semesters or 3 semesters to take that personal finance class or to learn about economics or business, it's too long, too late, right? I want it now, and I had a sense of urgency because I figure I have time, and I had my family that was supporting me where I didn't have to work. That time was precious, so I needed to make sure I accelerated my learning. And so I got licenses, and that's how I'm very young in this field that I'm in, that I think the average age is like probably 50, around the 60-year-old. And it's getting older to become a financial advisor, financial planner with a full certification. So that was it, it's the why. So I think we need to start with the why first and connect that with the how, right? So if you have a big enough why, for me was retiring my parents, to be financially independent, to be able to have more options in life, to be able to have better relationships. What I mean by that is I want to choose my friends, right? I want to be in better environments. All of those things require for me to just be better with my time, which I had a lot of when I was younger, and my money, which I had very little of. And so I need to maximize both of those things, where how can I figure out ways so I can get a better return on my money if I were to invest it, and then my time, with the time savings, I can move that to something else, right? So it's absolutely essential to that point where it's overlooked that you cannot say that you go throughout life and be completely ignorant, or just be ignorant, you don't have to be completely ignorant about finance. So that means that you don't understand how you build credit, because everything has to do with spending, right? And savings and growing and protecting it. So if you're not understanding these nuances, how do you go about life, right? Unless you just want to, I don't know, be a hermit and hide out in the mountains and not have to deal with cellular phone or anything at all, then yes, okay, then you don't need to listen to me or anybody really, or you don't need a financial education. But other than that, you absolutely have to. Just like we get basic education in the arts or the GEs, right, the general education, this is arguably, I mean, it's up there with physical education, right? How our body works, how can we be healthy? A good analogy about personal finance can be like the secret to be healthy, really in diseases, not the one that you get genetically, of course, but at a healthy lifestyle, it can all be traced back to really two things. It's dieting, right? Nutrition and exercise, right? It's really those two things. Like what we eat, right? And how we utilize our body so it doesn't become acidic or it breaks down, that it's a good well-oiled machine, right? Just like our car is. When it comes to personal finance, how are we budgeting, right? How are we saving? In other words, how are we paying ourselves? How are we preparing ourselves for the future? How are we protecting what we've accumulated? And how do we grow that, right? So it really comes down to, in essence, like our health, dieting and exercise, is how are we saving, right? How are we spending our money? It just surprises me because I guess for me, I was so driven as an immigrant. I came here when I was 6 years old and in 91. And we were sold this great American dream of opportunity where, it's prosperous. And I realized all of us were working like crazy to save up and to be a good family unit and be supportive. But there's got to be more than that. And so that's why, growing up, I looked at my older siblings and I said, okay, what they're doing is that, right? They have great jobs or they have really hardworking jobs. There's got to be more than that. So that's why I got involved in finance. And I figure, hey, I'm young enough. I need to apply myself as much as possible. And yes, the formal education is a big part, but it's only a small part of the bigger picture. And so I got to put myself out there and learn, or else I'll end up like my siblings and only kind of cap my success at that. So if they're making $50,000 a year, I'll be making 20 and 30% better just because I learn about personal finance and how finance work. I'm sold. Like that was it. That was the one thing that got me to say, yeah, I want to learn about personal finance. But here are my take on how you can begin your personal finance journey and begin knowing about personal finance and making that investment so you can get that 20 or 30% return that I was promised. And mind you, I would correct that person now. And if I was telling you from my perspective, how would you like to learn something that will improve whatever that you're going to do in life financially? Let's say you want to be an art teacher, you want to be anything, but now your income is going to double, 2x, not 20 or 30% better, at least double, just because you understand finance. And would that attract you, right? So it would attract me. Finance does influence us, right? If you're saying finance doesn't influence you, I don't know what planet you're living or what reality, but it influences everything we do, right? I mean, look at our government, right? You hear about the debt ceiling, you hear about, the way our government spend. It's everything. Finance can greatly influence us negatively or positively, how it can control us, right? Imagine if you're deep in debt, and it makes our quality of life better or worse. If you want to learn about personal finance, I've learned about this and as being reflective with just my personal life and my clients and seeing them very successful in retirement. If there's one single common denominator, everything that is the same with everybody, is that they are great savers. I cannot stress this enough, and I talked about this in previous videos, but start with this. If you want to learn about personal finance, start saving. So something as simple as, let's start with your money and then we can talk about time too, because that's a really part that I think people forget. It's time and money, but people forget about the time part. So let's talk about money. Look at all your spending. Ask yourself, could you save a little bit more on what you spend for the month? So let's say you end up spending like $1,500, right? Or $2,000 on things. Ask yourself, could you done something better for you to not spend $1,500, but it could have cost you, instead of spending that much, by saving or analyzing what you've done, you could have got it for, let's say $1,300, where you would have net a $200 saving. So that means that $200, you would have to work more, because remember, like $200 save is not the same as $200 earned, because we pay taxes, right? So if you save $200, it might be $260 or right? Because you have to pay taxes too. So you got to practice saving. And you got to look at how you spend your money, right? Instead of this, could you get the generic brand? Could you do this? Because when you get into the mode of savings, there's just some magic and some rippling effect that gets you to look and value your time and your money so much more. So it becomes a great habit and it builds a solid foundation for you. You got to ask yourself, okay, I'm saving. Now you got to save towards something. The problem I see is when people save, they just save and not do something. But as you want to grow, and you do, right? The goal really is to get progressively better at whatever it is that you are doing, right? So in this case, if you want to better your finances, this is the progressive step. Or to think progressively as you save towards something. And especially now, when money is becoming worth less, not worthless, but it's worth less and less because of inflation, because costs are going up. So just knowing that, You got to make sure that you're saving, so you're paying as little as you can. So the difference, you're able to put it towards investing in something, or saving, so you can use that extra savings so you can join that association that would open up networking opportunities for you, when you can save to get that additional degree or trade skill, whatever it is to increase your income. So the first thing is save, and then save towards something. And then the third thing is simply to build an environment that supports your growth, right? Your personal development. And I think you've already caught this on, is that, again, we're a holistic being, right? So that's why when I first started, even before getting involved in my career, I was always a big fan of personal development, right? You read books about how you can be a better person, a better thinker, just more effective. You probably know you got to be consistent, right? And I learned this from my Tai Chi master that I used to take this Tai Chi class, and just me exploring different ways to better my health, right? And just to kind of change things up a little for my life. And I remember, we would learn these movements to help control our breathing and our muscles. And I would take his class, I think it was once a month. And he stressed this to the class. And he said, if you're learning something once a month, you would never make any progress. That's meaningful, right? You can learn about it and know the uniqueness of Tai Chi, but you're not gonna make any meaningful progress. And he used this analogy. He said, think of it as a cup this big, and I'm gonna drop water into it. And this cup is gonna be in the sun. How long would you think that cup would be filled, right? If you're already thinking that it would take, I don't know, maybe 30 days, 100 days for it to be filled, if you're thinking that, you're completely wrong. When you put water outside, if you ever see after the rain, there's a puddle of water, and then when the sun comes out, I'm in California, Southern California, what happens to that puddle of water? It evaporates, right? After the sun comes out, especially when there's it's completely gone. So if I'm putting little drops every day, it's never gonna fill the cup at all, period, because the sun will make that water evaporate. So he's basically saying that instead of learning it once a month, I might want to do it every other day, shorten that time slowly. So I practice it as often as possible. But if I do it with such gaps, it would never stick. And it stuck with me with everything I do. So it's amazing. I learned that idea from Tai Chi, which is amazing, but I apply that to my real life in terms of my learning. So with that, I hope you enjoy this really long video. Please like, subscribe, provide feedback, with our email, reach out. So I know contents like this that I can find ways to share to be informative. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you next time.